From Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, I'm David Gavri, and this is the Vegas Faces podcast, where we talk with Las Vegas locals about what it's really like to live in the City of Lights. Whether you're living in Vegas, moving to Vegas, or just visiting Vegas and looking for new adventures, together let's discover the hidden gems that make Sin City the most visited place on earth. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vegas Faces podcast, where we explore the everyday side of Vegas and what it's like to live in the entertainment capital. I'm David Gavri. I'm a Las Vegas realtor with Realty One Group Summerlin. Shout out to producer Paul behind the scenes, making us all look good. This week's topic is food in Las Vegas. With us today is Alicia Chevatone, founder of Cuisine and Distilled Spices. She has written 3 cookbooks and is the founder of the first cookbook library. We're going to talk Vegas restaurants, the food scene, events, and so much more. Let's get right into it. Alicia, welcome to Vegas Faces. Let's kick this off with Vegas food. Is there such thing as Vegas cuisine? And if so, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, David, it's a huge question because this is ground zero it's the entertainment capital of the world, right? And fine dining and any kind of dining that you can imagine is lumped right into that. And I think what separates us here, there's obviously Michelin star restaurants. There's even we don't really technically have Michelin here in Las Vegas at all. But chefs that are of that caliber. There's so much more than the food that you see on the strip. And I kind of feel like if you're a local, you're a broken record if you say that. But the truth is, we attract tourists, millions and millions of tourists for conferences and, for gambling and all different types of entertainment. But this is truly also a destination for food. And so many people think that the totality of what Vegas has to offer is within the Las Vegas Strip. And the truth is there's so much more. There's Chinatown, there's downtown, which specifically the Arts District, there's some amazing food going down over there. And it's also we're a melting pot, right? So it's almost like we are the epitome of what the United States is all about in terms of many cultures blending into one. So many different types of cuisine. I mean, there's Afghani cuisine here. There's obviously Asian cuisine in Chinatown, and so many different regions of large countries like China, so you'll see a Shanghainese restaurant. So I think that the important thing to realize when it comes to Vegas food is that, number one, it's not just the strip. Number two, you can have anything you want. Number three, you can have any price point that you want, right? So there are some amazing deals and some fantastic chefs that are off strip that offer just, exceptional cuisine for prices that, will blow you away. And also just the variety of techniques and humbleness associated with different types of restaurants. You can walk into a place that one of my favorite restaurants is called Chili Verde Express, and it's on Rainbow. I can't remember the cross street. I don't know if it's Robindale in the Southwest, which is where my husband and I used to live. Actually, some of the best Mexican food you will ever get, and it's in a gas station. And it's tucked away into a gas station. You would never know it's there unless you're looking at, how much gas costs, and you see, a little tiny little sign, subset of the sign that says, Chili Verde Express. But just one example of, the variety and the diversity that we have here in Sin City.
Yeah, that's so wild because people always think that, it must be the strip. It has to be the strip. But what happens when the strip gets so saturated and then these chefs want to branch out and all the real estate on the strip is taken up? Where do they go? They go to places like you mentioned, these obscure places, whether it's in the burbs or in the middle of between the burbs and the strip. And also I've heard that it's not just, you have these celebrity chefs here in Las Vegas, and then you have chefs who study under them. And then once they're strong enough to have their own restaurant, where do they go? So it's so unique that even in the burbs, even way off strip, like you said, you get these amazing restaurants that you would just never know existed. That's part of why we moved here. When we first got to Vegas, we said, let's branch out. Let's see what else is out there. And just the stuff that we found, it was just mind blowing. What made you move to Vegas in the first place? What made you start having your business here?
I think my husband and I really love the idea of a 24-hour city, even though we don't stay out nearly as late as we used to. But, there's just something to be said for a city that doesn't sleep and that is always going and there's always something to do. What's also great about Las Vegas is that everyone comes to you. You're never alone because everyone's always coming to Vegas for something. It's always somebody's bachelorette party. It's always somebody's 21st birthday or a kid's 21st birthday. And there's always a conference or, you're just passing through on your way to, New York or whatever, at least from the West Coast, which is where I'm from. So we're never alone out here, and which is fantastic, but mostly just because there's always something to do. And
Yeah.
housing prices are much more affordable than California, even though not necessarily as much lately. But, yeah, definitely a benefit out here, depending upon where you started versus why you came here.
Yeah, no, no kidding. And it's such a fun double-edged sword because yes, people will visit you regardless. Like we've had
Mhm.
people come out the woodwork that we haven't seen since high school. Oh, you live in Vegas now? I'm going to be in Vegas. And now
Yes.
they want you to be part of their Vegas vacation that they've saved up all year for. And I live here. And it's like it's really nice to have all the excitement, but it's also nice to say, oh, I'm thinking I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock today. Like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
it's
and it's
nice that
also
it's there.
expensive too, because when people come, like you said, I mean, if they've been saving up all year, they want to go somewhere really, really cool, and chances are they're going to be spending some money, which means you have to spend money. So
Yeah. And we
it
have
can,
work tomorrow. It's like they literally
yes,
think that you just live a party life, that you're just like this Vegas party goer or whatever, like just crazy wild Vegas person. It's like, hey, we have normal lives here too. Now we have slot machines at the grocery store. Like there are parts to living here that are
hmm,
abnormal, that's for sure. But
that's
all in all, yeah, for the most part, I would say pretty normal life with a little bit of fun sprinkled in there.
very true.
I want to get into your culinary background. I find it fascinating that you graduated law school, you have a law degree, and then you went into business, and then somehow ended up in the culinary arts. Can you go into that?
It is a crazy story. I mean, I was one of those kids that I thought I was going to be a lawyer, from a very very young age, and I got to law school, my first year of law school, and I absolutely hated it. I hated it. And of course, when you're in law school, it's not like an LA law moment where you see yourself in the courtroom and stuff. You're learning case law, and the books are like this big, and you're just, and plus I worked full time all the way through undergrad and law school. So I was so burned out and I just was very unhappy. And right when I was graduating law school was when I met my now husband. So we've been together 28 years, but he was the one that helped me realize it's like, you don't really like this. And I knew that, but I thought that I had to see it through because it's what I intended to do. I set my sights on a goal, and I'm a very goal oriented person. And I was willing almost to sacrifice my happiness because it's a goal that I had that I wanted to reach and to fulfill. But as it turned out, I went into business. I went into high tech sales. I had a career in sales, working for a lot of different types of companies. Got into professional services, got into consulting. So by day, for the past 5 years, I've been a CEO of a consulting firm based in Northern California. About 7 years ago, I had the idea after watching, basically, and being stimulated by food my entire life and loving to cook my entire life. I had an epiphany when we were living in San Diego at the time in a very, very small condo in the Marina District with very little space. That food media, particularly Food Network and all the cooking shows that I watched, were for large families and for people who had unlimited resources, large kitchens. And I thought to myself, there's nobody doing anything urban here. There's nobody speaking for demographics of people with households of two, which is my husband and I. We don't have kids by choice. Um, and it seemed like every time I would, look for a recipe online or watch a cooking show and learn about something that I wanted to cook, it was always, 4, 6, 8 servings or more. And I started making the recipes, but what I realized was half the time I was wasting food. The other half of the time I was overeating because if I really, really liked it, I would eat more than my share. And I was starting to gain weight, and I became just generally frustrated by being a consumer, being a food consumer in the world of culinary. And I thought to myself, somebody has to change this. Somebody has to do something different. So I started writing my own recipes for two. And then I started a website called Dink Cuisine. Dink is an acronym for dual income, no kids. And it sat there for a while because I didn't really have the concept fleshed out in my head. But a couple years later, um, built the website through help of a very, very good friend of mine. Still have the same website to this day. It's changed a little bit, but it's now I've got literally hundreds of recipes. I got on social media, which I had never been on social media before until about 4 or 5 years ago. I started a group on Facebook about recipes for two, which now has almost 1,000 members. And I realized there were way more people like me than I thought. Not just people who don't have kids, but for people in our demographics. So I'm 53. My husband just turned 59. People who are friends of ours who have kids that are grown and out of the house. And so they are now empty nesters and they're facing the same realities that I faced, 20 years ago, which is, hey, it's just me and my husband here. What are we going to do? But that could be any number of different demographics, right? It could be a couple of roommates. It could be a person caring for an aging parent. Any number of different dynamics. The average household in America is 2.53 people. So are there way more households like us than there are, large families? So that's kind of how it all started, and started writing cookbooks. And, before we know it, here we are 4 years later, and I'm just having the time of my life. And hopefully we'll retire from the day job soon, the next couple of years, and then be able to dedicate the rest of my life to culinary. So.
No, that's awesome. And it says you're a pop-up chef. I want to get into that because I feel like a lot of people don't even know what that means, and I'm not even going to pretend to say what it means. So please just go ahead.
Yeah. No, it is. And a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with that term. So basically what a pop-up chef means is that I just do events. So I'm not tied to a restaurant. My husband and I don't own a restaurant. Both of our families, ironically, run the bar and restaurant business. So it's in our blood. However, because I do still have a day job, I couldn't really own a restaurant and be a chef at a restaurant anyway, because I just don't have the time for that. But number two, I don't have the fortitude and I don't have the right mindset for it. I think that if you were dedicated to, and being in the restaurant business is obviously extremely difficult, very, very challenging, highly competitive. You could say that, you'll change your menu and you have seasonal menus and different things, but there's still a repetition associated with the restaurant that doesn't stimulate me at all. And so the concept of doing an event and different events throughout the city where I can have my menu change literally from event to event. I've never had the same event twice in 4 years. That is why I do what I do, and it's referred to as a pop-up chef. Yeah.
I love that. In fact, while we're on the topic of events, let's get into the event that's coming up for you, the Holiday Appy Hour. And that is not a
Yes, my
typo.
holiday dash. Yeah, yeah. So I'm in my 4th year of my culinary residency at Vegas Valley Winery, which is great, especially now as a Henderson resident. They are literally down the street from me, which is fantastic. So every couple of months, I do events there. I call them my appy hours, and it's my appetizers paired with Vegas Valley wines, Vegas Valley Winery's wines. And December 14th at 5:30 p.m., we sold out, I think, within a week. Tickets went on sale in early November, and they were just gone. And unfortunately, so many people, probably more than ever, have asked, "Can you add, to more tickets?" I just can't because we're maxed out in space. So the next one's going to be in February. I think it's February 6th or 7th. I've got one after that. I think it's like April 12th. So we're booking into next year already, which is great. But yeah,
Wow.
I have just the best time doing those events. It's been so fun.
Wow. Congratulations to you. That's an awesome problem to have.
Thank
Wow.
you.
For those that won't be able to make it, what could they expect from the next one?
We've done it in a couple of different ways. The last event that we had, October 26th, was really, really fun because they had it in their winemaking area in the back, which allowed me, because we were out of the tasting room, we had a dedicated space that were just basically my guests. So I was able to actually get on a microphone and actually talk through the menu and the inspiration for all the dishes. But that's unusual in many cases, as with as is the case on December 14th. We're going to be in the tasting room, which means there's other going to be people circling around and kind of buying wine and different things. So it's a very festive environment. They're going to have all their Christmas decorations up and holiday decorations. There's going to be a band in the front. So there's really not an opportunity for me to address the crowd, which is sort of generally the case. It's generally the vibe there. So I address every table individually, every group of guests. I get to talk to them and I get to interact with them, on a on a personal basis, which is really really fun because I literally have made friends through these events that I talk to every week that continue to come to my events because every event is different. We've never done the same one twice. The FaceTime that I'm able to have with all the guests is what's really special because it's just, it's so personal and it's really really fun, and plus I get the feedback on what people like, what they would like to see differently next time, or can you do this, or I had no idea you accommodate, I'm a vegetarian, if I come back would you be able to do just a vegetarian menu? Of course the answer is yes. I've got vegans, vegetarians, I've got people with dietary restrictions, shellfish allergies, you name it. So it probably wouldn't happen despite our best efforts to put that on the ticket, descriptions and so forth. In many cases, it would not have happened had I not had the time to spend with the guests face to face. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. What is your inspiration behind creating these events? Like, for instance, the next one in February and the one after that, is it always following the seasons, the time of year? Like, where do you get your ideas for, ooh, I should put these sort of food items on this event or versus that event and so on?
Some of it is definitely seasonal. I think that a lot of it is truly inspired what I cook at home. And I think that because I'm not a restaurant chef and I am definitively a home cook that turned pro, my lens through which I view the world and I view food and how I like to eat when I go out places is through the lens of a home chef. And it's things that I can actually tell people how they can prepare. Some of the recipes that I'm going to be preparing, for example, in December, are actually on my website. My dessert is called the Mandarin tea cake, which is a little mini loaf, if you can imagine like a pound cake. But I bake them in these little mini loaf pans because chef for two over here has to do everything on a miniature level. So I'm actually going to be baking multiple loaves of that and then slicing them as the dessert course. But if anybody is particularly taken by the dessert and I happen to be speaking to them, I'd be able to tell them, like, look, you can make this at home. Like, all you need to do is buy the mini loaf pan and sort of give people that confidence, inspire them to do things and to cook and to create. I think it's more about when I think about the menus, it's what's going to connect together so that it doesn't look like it's such a disparate, separate courses, but that there's some sort of tie-in together where I'm not like doing three things that are chicken, or I'm not doing something that's all vegetarian, or I'm not doing like three or four carb heavy
Mhm.
appetizers, which when I first started, I did stuff like that because I wasn't necessarily thinking, and I learned throughout the process as I went. I've just gotten better and better and better because, obviously, the more experience you get, the more mindful you can be, and your strategy for menu development and so forth. So it's been a process. Been a
Wow.
process.
Do you have any specialty dishes that are your signature that you consider to be uniquely Ding Cuisine, entrees or apps or desserts or anything like that?
I have a one of my favorite entrees that I make is a white chicken lasagna, and it's actually in my first cookbook called Italian Cookbook for Two. And I prepare it in a loaf pan, like a standard size loaf pan. So it makes two very very generous portions of lasagna. Which, when my husband and I eat lasagna, we have very big appetites in general, so it's not too much for us. It might be not necessarily two portions for other people, but for us it is. Um, so it's basically just ground chicken in a really luscious velvety bechamel sauce with ricotta and mozzarella cheese and parmesan, and it's so unbelievably good. It's just fantastic. It's still, here we are. I'm now writing my fourth cookbook, and that remains one of my favorites.
Wow, man, love me a good lasagna, and that is not something that I'll even attempt to make. There are certain dishes that just go out and buy them. Like, it's not even worth trying to look it up and figure it out. It's like there are people out there who make it way better. Let's just have the professionals do the work. So I love that.
Hmm.
I want to get into Sin City Kitchen. To my knowledge, it's a from what I've seen, it's a TV show that's filmed right here in Vegas. It's a cooking show. Correct me if I'm wrong. I probably am. You've partnered with the Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club, or that just was some of the episodes that you filmed. Either way, I was fascinated when I saw your viewing that you had when you were with Lunel. What I found really fascinating was the fact that the Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club food, like it's not your standard comedy club bar food, like it's actually gourmet, like real
Right.
deal. Like, and someone like myself coming from the comedy world, I'm used to comedy clubs putting a pizza in the microwave and then charging you $20 for it. So it was nice and refreshing to see that, like, wow, even the Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club, even that place makes gourmet food here in Vegas. You can find such good food no matter what part of town you're at. So
Yeah.
feel free to talk about Sin City Kitchen, and love to learn more about it.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was very fortunate to film one episode at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club. And that was thanks to some PR people that I know, and also Pompeii Entertainment, which is led by Damien Costa. So Damien is legendary in this town for opening and operating restaurants and different types of entertainment venues, including the Composers Lounge, Composers Room, which is another episode that I did. But when we approached Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club, I knew that I wanted to interview Linnell because she's a groundbreaker. I mean, she's her residency on the Las Vegas Strip is legendary. She is a force to be reckoned with. She had just released her first Netflix special, which was very, very timely. This was literally, I think, about a year ago, right at this time. But we filmed it. Pretty sure it was like in May or June of last year. So it took an act of Congress to get Jimmy Kimmel to personally approve
Wow.
me filming there. So it actually went all the way up to him. But he's
Wow.
local Vegas, so I think he appreciated the connection. Then it took a while to actually get a date because obviously we had to clear Linnell's schedule, and she knew that she was releasing the Netflix special. So once we actually filmed, then we had to edit it and actually, get it into production, which was super, super fun. And then I had, in the middle of the night, one night, I decided that I wanted a watch party to reveal the episode as our premiere for season 2 of Sin City Kitchen. And I wanted to have the watch party at Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club, and I wanted Linnell to attend. So, of course, that set off an entire chain of more permissions that had to happen. So it took forever, but it was totally worth it. That was the only one that we filmed there, though, because particularly for season 2, my format has been to film on location and give sneak peeks of different venues. For example, I was very fortunate to have a sneak peek of Jason Aldean's new restaurant coming in at City Center next to Ocean Prime. And that's going to be opening, I think, this week because they have like a gigantic VIP party for F1 in advance of the night that they're actually having their grand opening. So I'm so lucky to know a bunch of different chefs all over town who are like, hey, come see this, or, we really want to get on your show. We're opening a new place. You can have a first look at it. There was some friends of mine opened up a champagne lounge at the Venetian, which is great. And so we actually filmed 2 episodes there. We filmed an episode where it was just concrete and, plain walls. And then we filmed it again when I did a pop up with the singer and one of my very good friends, Tiffany, who was in town for a concert with Taylor Dane at M Resort. So we did a pop up the next night there at the Champagne Lounge, which was really fun. Perez Hilton was there. It was just a dream, more than you could ever expect. I mean, it's just these things just keep on happening. And I don't really take any credit for them. I'm just riding the wave. But
It's so fun though. There's so many characters in this town. There's
Mhm.
so many opportunities if you just look for them and just
Yeah.
keep persisting. I mean, like you were talking about making the scheduling and having to wait for the chain of command, but it's like you just keep knocking, it'll happen. And then when that happens, it opens up doors for other really fun things. And I mean, it is the entertainment capital. There's a lot of fun to be had in this town.
Well, and you raise an interesting point too, David, that a lot of people give up. They see barriers to entry and they're like, okay, so this isn't for me or this isn't going to happen. And I think if my career in sales prepared me for anything, it's that until someone tells me, no, go away now, stop calling here, I'm going to keep going because I just assume that if I talk to the right person, if I get through the right people, it will happen. And the Jimmy Kimmel thing, the episode with Linnell, that watch party, and I know you attended that watch party. I wasn't convinced that it was going to happen until 11:15 p.m. because the remember the party started like at 11:30
Hmm.
at night.
Hmm. Yep.
But she didn't walk in the door until 11:15. So I thought to myself, this could all, I mean, we still would have had a watch party, but she wouldn't have been there and it would have been different. And it just, so up until that very moment, like I'm just kind of like white knuckling it, going, but like, yeah, I did everything I could, but there were probably about 400. I actually counted at one point, probably about 400 emails, texts, and phone calls over a 6 month period to make that happen. And a
Yeah.
lot of people would have just said, "Screw this, I'm not going to do it." But I'm not crazy, so you're not going to get rid of me.
Yeah. It has to be a right amount of crazy, but also like delusion slash like
Mhm.
too like all the positivity in the world that kind of convinces your delusional mind to say, no, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's gonna work out. Just gotta keep going and it'll work. And
Yeah,
I can relate coming from the comedy world, having to put on comedy shows that are not in comedy clubs, which are once you have a comedy club, it's easy, but it's
yeah,
relatively you still have to get a crowd. But yeah, putting on a show like pop-up comedy shows basically.
yeah,
And are we gonna get a crowd? Are people gonna show up? Am I about to put these talented performers in front of three people and you're stressing, hoping to give the performer a good show? And then if the crowd shows up, I hope that the performers are at their best. And so I can sort of relate. And I'm getting the anxiety all over again, hearing about you putting on your events. Cause every time you put on an event, I hope people come. I hope people
yeah,
show up. I'm making all this food. I hope they come and enjoy it. So
yeah.
kudos to you for putting yourself through that all
Thank
the
you,
time.
thank
It's
you.
awesome. It's a cool thing. It's really fun talking to you. I want to know Vegas restaurants. You can if you have any like restaurant recommendations or maybe cuisines. Me personally, I think Vegas does Italian food really well.
Yeah.
There's so many Italian restaurants here. What are your favorite spots, parts of town, things like that?
Well, I'd say that Piero's right by the convention center is great because it's off strip and it's valet only, so literally you don't have to deal with parking. You just drive up and it's a great place. It's built as an Italian steakhouse, but I love the location. I love that it's literally right down the street from Resorts World. I've been going there with my husband for probably 27 years. We were just there to celebrate his birthday and another friend's birthday this past Friday. It's home, and I know the menu by heart. I know the specials by heart. It's just kind of like one of those places that's very nostalgic. And my mom loves to go there. And when you go there and you still see Freddie at a booth, and it's just, the experience just can't be beat. Also, because back in 2001, when we lived here the first time, we saw George Clooney at a table right across from us when they were filming Ocean's 11, and so that was like it's just that type of place where you never know who's actually going to have a reservation, and stars go there, celebrities go there all the time because it's under the radar. Um, and nobody bothers them, unlike my husband who walked right up to him and started talking to him and really embarrassed me, but that's okay because but I would say another one that Also, way off strip is Basilico, which is great. It's by Barcata Hospitality. They are the operating hospitality company behind Palette Las Vegas, which is the great restaurant in the Arts District where my cookbook library is. But Basilico, Chef Francisco is just absolutely phenomenal, and they're starting to get a lot of press now. They're Buffalo and 215. Really exceptional cuisine. Really, really outstanding. I can't say enough about that place. It also is right next door to where I get my hair done. So, and I normally get my hair done way before they open. So I'm just like looking there, salivating, going like, I just wish I could walk through the door. Like it's out of reach.
There's so many places like that too, where you have to make a reservation at least a month or two in advance. To where
Mhm.
it's like we might as well make the reservation now, and when they call us, let's make plans. That's it.
Yeah, RPM is also fantastic. So RPM at Caesars and the Farm Shops, really, really good. I mean, I don't think we had a bad thing there.
Yeah.
Really, really phenomenal. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, it's tough to pin down because there are quite a few. But
But I'll say I'm happy. I'm always happy to hear solid recommendations of restaurants on the strip simply because I do
Mhm,
feel like there are restaurants on the strip that are just overpriced just because it's the strip. And then there are the
mhm,
restaurants that are pricey but worth the ticket, worth the price of admission. And it's hard to decipher which is just an overpriced restaurant because of the real estate here and which are the ones that are actual gems that should be enjoyed at this price. So always love hearing where to go because we've definitely been to some that are just this is overpriced and what are we paying for? Like this wasn't to our satisfaction. It wasn't the amount, whatever it was, just didn't seem to be worth what they were charging, other than the fact that you're just on the strip.
yeah, I think it also pays to have a relationship with the restaurant. So it's your mindset, it's how you're treated when you're there. The food, and I don't want to go so far or be so bold as to say the food is secondary. That's absolutely not true. But it's the ambiance, it's how you feel when you walk in the door. I'll give another example of Guy Savoy. We were at Guy Savoy over the weekend, again, continuing my husband's, the following night on his actual birthday, Guy Savoy at Caesars. I mean, and I no problem telling you. I mean, like just for the two of us, our bill was with tip $2,400, and that's a lot of money to spend for dinner. And we've had the benefit of being there. I don't know, 30, 40 times in the past 15, 17 years. We're very, very fortunate, but they're friends of ours. So when we walked, they were full to capacity. And I sent a text to the GM and to one of the captains, who's a personal friend of ours, and I was like, "Hey, listen, Mark and I are out on the strip today. Any chance we can squeeze in at 5 o'clock, for reservation?" They said, "You always have a table here." So it's just it pays to have friends that are at restaurants, and it just so happens that Chef Nico. I mean, you're not going to get a better meal, in my opinion, than Guy Savoy at Caesars. But there's also like Le Cirque. I mean, another very, very expensive restaurant. People don't know that you can actually go into the bar of Le Cirque and just have a cocktail, and just get the experience of just a phenomenal top rated restaurant at Bellagio, and just soak it all in, even if you don't want to eat there. If you don't, maybe you don't necessarily want to spend money to have that kind of food. So there are plenty of places to go in this town that are very, very fancy, but you won't necessarily be treated like it's fancy, uh,
Mm.
if you have the right attitude and you're not dressed like a punk, that
Yeah,
matters.
exactly. Yeah, always loved that. Like that is one thing in this town. It is a hospitality town, and the service has to be just as good as the food because I feel like
Mhm,
you won't survive in the city. Like there's just too many good restaurants with good service that if you don't
mhm.
have, you could have good food but not good service and still rub people the wrong way, and that's it. So,
And there's plenty of other, restaurants where, and I won't mention any names, but I'd say on par with Guy Savoy in terms of price and in terms of exclusivity, where there was like a 2 week period where we were still living in California, and we went to this one restaurant, very, very expensive, 2 weeks in a row. Flew out here 2 weeks in a row. And they didn't even acknowledge that we had been there the week before. And we saw the same exact people, and my husband's very gregarious, so like we're somewhat memorable and not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but it's like I know you know who we are because we talked a long time with each of these people, and they didn't thank us when we walked out the first time. They didn't thank us when we walked out the second time. But
Oh.
more, I think, even worse is that they didn't even respond favorably to the fact that we had returned so quickly for the amount
Mm,
of money that we had spent, and we thought we had a really really good time. But then we haven't been back since. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Alicia, a culinary professional like yourself, how do you feel about Vegas buffets? Is that like a total amateur move for someone who knows nothing about the culinary appreciation? I've heard
No.
mixed things. I hear people be like, "Ooh, buffets, that's garbage. That's not, you know." So I'd love to know your take.
Well, it depends. Like if it's the buffet, like in Vegas Vacation, where you've got the blue or the yellow, and you've got like a somebody slopping the food, right? That's maybe not the type of like buffet that you're going to be after. But I think there's some buffets that are just exceptional. Like the buffet at the Wynn is my favorite buffet. Um, I remember I must have been. I mean, I was still. I don't even know that I was 21 yet. My mom took me to Vegas one year, and we went to the seafood buffet at the Rio. This was like I think like in the it must have been in the late 80s. I mean, it's just an experience in and of itself. And how could you speak ill of such a quintessential Las Vegas experience? I think everybody should go to a buffet. And I personally love the Win, but I think they all have a place, right? They all have a place. They all have something that makes them unique. So, no, I don't dismiss that at all. I think they're all great. And they all have phenomenal chefs, by the way. Executive chefs whose entire jobs rely upon their ability to make either something more affordable than you think it might be, more diverse in terms of selections, high quality ingredients, working with some of the country's best purveyors. You'd be surprised that these aren't just like an afterthought by the casinos and hotels that run them. They're very much a sense of pride in this community and in this city. So no, definitely check out the face for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say for me, not knowing anything about culinary arts, my top three buffets are Wynn, Caesars, and Cosmo.
Cosmo. I haven't been to the Cosmo one yet, but so there was just something online about it. Like somebody just blew them up and did something really, really positive about with something that they're offering now that they didn't before. I can't remember what it was, but
Fun, fun. Alicia, before we wrap, I want to talk about your cookbook library and the fact that it's never been done before. And you said it's located in the Arts District. I find all of that fascinating. Please go into that.
yeah, as a cookbook author, I had an epiphany late one evening that the pursuit of culinary knowledge shouldn't come at a price. And there are plenty of people in this country who can't necessarily afford a cookbook. Yes, you can go online, and yes, you can find recipes online. But if you're truly passionate about cooking, or if you're very curious about something, or if you want to learn something, you shouldn't be barred from having access to a cookbook. Something as fundamental as feeding our families, right, and wanting to prepare something at home. My latest cookbook is a hardcover cookbook, and it retails at $40. Yeah, that's just not it's just not really realistic for a lot of people, and I know that. And once I started asking around to a bunch of chefs who have authored cookbooks, particularly restaurateurs here in Las Vegas, I realized that they felt the same way. That particularly if you have a restaurant here in Las Vegas, or you're a chef who benefits from the hospitality scene in Las Vegas, it's an opportunity for you to give back, to donate cookbooks, and potentially maybe even at some point donate money, for scholarships for culinary education, or local artisans, small businesses who are producers just like me, for example, who are trying to create really fantastic products and get them to market. Um, so I reached out to my friends at Palette Las Vegas, which is where food meets art. It's a fantastic concept. My husband actually has 9 paintings at Palette Las Vegas. They've got a beautiful lounge area with a whole bunch of shelves that had different sorts of fiction and nonfiction books, and I texted one of the partners. I think it was like 11:30 at night one night after a few glasses of wine, and I asked him. I said, "How would you guys like to be the first cookbook library?" I said, "It doesn't exist, and I want to do it." And he said, "Let's talk." And within about 2.5 months, we had an entire library of cookbooks that I had received, donations from all over the country, and some personal inventory from me and my friend Dr. Nicole Beer, who's a librarian. And we did it. And as of August 15th, we are now a 501c3. So thank you, IRS, for making that happen for us. And our second location is going to be opening in Henderson at the Multi-Gen Center in Green Valley Ranch area, January 11th. So, and from there, national expansion. We want to be in every metropolitan area across the country to make culinary content more accessible to communities across America.
That's fantastic. Love that, Alicia. Before we go, where can people find you other than Instagram, and where can they catch all your fun products and services? Especially, we didn't get into your distilled spices, so please throw that in. Mention everything that we missed. But
Thank you. Yeah, I know. There's so much. I know. So it gets a little overwhelming.
great. You have a great resume.
So distilledspices.com. So up until very recently, so for the past year and a half, about a year and a half ago, I released a spice line, which is an alcohol-inspired spice line. So I've got 7 different blends. So I call them my lucky 7. Vegas brand, concocted in Vegas is my tagline. And each spice blend has a different spirit in it. So for example, my Al Pastor is like a great, taco blend, Mexican seasoning it's infused with tequila. I've got a couple of sweet blends, so chai and mojito. Chai is infused with spice rum, mojito is infused with white rum. So those are great for baking. In the past couple of months, I have started developing a snack line. So using my spice line to flavor a brand of mixed nuts, and that I'm calling Distilled Snacks. So I'm going to be pitching distilled spices and snacks on a wholesale basis to bars, restaurants, casinos, and then from there, stadiums and across the country. So that's been really, really exciting for me. But you can still purchase retail. I've had actually my biggest holiday season ever so far, and I feel like we've barely gotten started. So distilledspices.com for anybody who's interested in purchasing just for their homes. And then people can also find me at dinkcuisine.com. And then my YouTube channel, Dink Cuisine, where all my media and TV episodes are. So you can see a lot of great how-to stuff for that too. And those are the primary channels.
Love that. That's awesome. Alicia, thanks so much for giving us your time today. And I want to also say thank you for being one of the Vegas Faces.
Thank you so much, David, and the rest of your team. It's been such a great experience. So can't wait to promote this episode. And thank you so much for the work that you guys do to get these Vegas Faces out there.
Thank you for subscribing to Vegas Faces on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok under the name Gavri Group. That's Gavri Group. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next episode.